Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Safe House, brought to you by the SafeHouse Initiative. I'm Jeff Edwards, co-chair of the SafeHouse Initiative, and your host for today's podcast. The purpose of today's episode is to gain an informed perspective on AI's impact on cybersecurity. I've asked Jeff Crume, an IBM Distinguished Engineer and CTO IBM Security Americas, to join us to walk us through his perspective and give us some education on what to expect AI's impact on cybersecurity is. Jeff, hey, welcome, and could you tell us about yourself?
Thanks, Jeff. Yes, thanks for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. My educational background, I did got a computer science degree back about 1,000 years ago. I actually rode a dinosaur to class. It was that long ago.
Nice.
And and that was at NC State University. And now just kind of complete the cycle. In 2019, I got my PhD in cybersecurity, and now I'm back at NC State University teaching as well. So I do that on the side in addition to the day job that you mentioned at IBM. And I'll say that the views expressed on this podcast are my own. I'm not representing IBM or NC State. So that would just be that disclaimer up front. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been with IBM for 41 years, and I've been with NC State teaching for the last 4. And it's been a fascinating, wild ride throughout all of that time. And in the meantime, along the way, wrote a book and lived in Beijing, and just all kinds of experiences. So I've been very fortunate in that regard.
Well, it's great to have you, Doctor. And anyway, could you give us kind of a walkthrough from your perspective? What are the realities of AI's impact on cybersecurity? There's fears and there's a lack of information. Can you just give us an educated perspective on AI's impact on cybersecurity?
Well, I'll give you my perspective. You can decide how educated it is or not. But my opinion is that AI, like almost every technology, its potential to do really good things is directly proportional to its potential to do really bad things. And it's really up to us to figure out which it's going to be. And it can do both at the same time, as a matter of fact. So it's not dramatically different. I mean, if we look back over some of the other technologies and how they've advanced and come along, like the internet, was that a something that brought us together, or was it something that dehumanized and caused us to come apart? Well, the answer is both. We connect with people in ways that we couldn't before, and the world is more interconnected as a result. But then sometimes we become more dehumanized, and we stare into our phones because we're just on social media, looking at silly cat videos rather than talking to the person across the table. So again, AI, I think, will have a similar kind of set of effects where it will do some things where it will advance knowledge, and we can use it to do better cybersecurity, to simplify the task for the humans that and leverage as a force multiplier so that we can do a better job. But at the same time, the bad guys are going to use it too. And they're going to use it to sharpen the tip of their spear so that they can attack more effectively. So it's going to be both. The arms race continues, which is actually, not really news if you think about it, because that's been that way for as long as we've had computers.
So how do you best harness the power of AI for good? And also the other side of the coin is, how do the bad guys harness it for bad?
Yeah, I think for the good guys, it starts with making sure that we understand what the technology is capable of and what it's not. So understand its limitations and also understand its possibilities. And a lot of people that I talk to are really good at one or the other of those, but not both. And I think our challenge is to be able to see both. So some of its limitations are that if we start using this relatively newer technology, generative AI with large language models and chat bots and things that, the great thing is they can they can talk to us in a conversational way using natural language. So I don't have to reformulate my questions to match the way the system expects me to ask them. I can ask them the same way I would if I was talking to another person, because it understands more my intent. So that's the good thing. But then we also have to understand that a side effect of those systems is that they can hallucinate at times. Yeah. And they can give you a lot of information really quickly, rather than doing a web search and you get 1,000 pages and now you got to decide between the good, the bad, the ugly, and the ads, because it's all out there. And you got to figure it out, or you can ask a chatbot and it will tell you in a concise way what the answer is. The problem is the answer may not always be right. It may be mostly right, but we have to be careful about what we believe and what we don't believe. And if we're going to use that kind of technology, say to diagnose if somebody is breaking into my system or not, what's the extent of that? What types of indicators of compromise and attack vectors are being leveraged? Well, we're gonna want to use that technology to speed that process up, but we're going to also need something that is a trustworthy AI, first of all, and we can talk about what goes into making an AI trustworthy, and then also the ability to make sure that we can validate its results. So it's sort of the old trust but verify. At least until the technology gets a lot better, we need to do a lot of additional verification so that we, in fact, know that it's trustworthy. And I've had some rather interesting experiences in working with these systems in terms of what's trustworthy and what's not.
Yeah, could you dig into that just a little bit more in terms of your experiences? Yeah.
For instance, and ChatGPT is a technology I really like. I use it pretty frequently, along with other types of generative AI. And by the way, IBM's been working on generative AI for years. So this is not new, other than it's new to the general public. But anyway, I was using ChatGPT about a year ago, right after it launched, and I asked it one day, "Who is Jeff Crume?" Now, the reason I asked it that question was because I'm not an expert on a lot of things, but that's one thing I feel like I could qualify, because Jeff Crume is a guy I've literally known all my life. So I figure I can ask it that, and I have a background, and I'll know if what it's telling me is correct or not. And what it came back with were a number of different things. It said, that I was a cybersecurity expert, author, distinguished engineer at IBM, all the things that you talked about. But then it also said, I'm an adjunct professor at Southern Methodist University, which is a university I've never been to. I'm sure it's a great place, but I have no association with SMU whatsoever. As I mentioned to you, I teach at NC State University. It also said I wrote a couple of books. One, What Hackers Don't Want You to Know, that I did, and another, Java Cryptography Extensions, which I've never even read. So there we go, 50-50 on the authorship question. It said I had won an ISSA Fellow Award, which I didn't win. And it said that I got my PhD from Texas Tech University, which is not the university that I got my PhD from. So overall, 95% of what it said about me was correct, but that 5%, that little bit of insidious error that gets introduced, and not through any malicious means, that's just enough to throw things off. Now imagine if someone were able to attack the large language model behind this and poison it with wrong information, then they could spread even more false information through the chatbot. So we again have to keep our heads fully engaged and verify what we see, because otherwise it could be this mixture of truth and error. And because it sounds true doesn't mean it is. It means it's in the neighborhood of truth, but that's not the same thing. And we need something precise when we're doing cybersecurity.
So in a way, it's kind of like AI is an apprentice of sorts, and then you're the master that says, hey, you're training them and AI to learn, but it could learn and make bad assumptions without your guidance or your ongoing checking. Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. And imagine it's an eager apprentice that wants to please. So if you ask it a question, it will give you an answer in most cases. Now, sometimes we've put guardrails into the AI so that it will not answer certain questions that we think are dangerous or harmful. But in general, it's going to try to satisfy whatever it is you ask it to do. And if it doesn't know, well, it'll just make something up, something that's, close to what it would know. And that's how we end up with these hallucinations. They're close to the right answer, but not exactly. And again, in some use cases, it doesn't matter. You could argue it doesn't really matter, Jeff, to the rest of the world where you went to school or where you're teaching now, and it probably doesn't. But if that information was something that I was trying to base important decisions on, that'd be a big problem. And again, if I'm in a security operations center and I'm trying to track down the source of an attack, I need that thing to be trustworthy. I need to know that I can believe in it. When I ask it to, for instance, you were asking, how could we use this for good? Yeah. Well, if we were to, for instance, take all the information, all the indicators of compromise, we've been investigating an incident, and the boss needs a summary of where do we stand on this case? Well, wouldn't it be nice if I could say, give me a 2-paragraph summary of the status of this particular incident? And it turns out these LLMs are good at doing summarization, taking large amounts of information and summarizing it down. So that'd be really good, but we need to make sure it gives the right summary and not the wrong information. And a lot of the AIs that are out there, we'll just say we've got a history where it's not preserving privacy. It's not fully transparent or explainable as to how we get the results. And there's not fairness in the way that it goes about building some of these things. It can be skewed and biased. So that's what we've got to guard against.
So do you see this AI being integrated more and more into like the SIMs out there and helping to manage the cybersecurity breaches, things of that nature?
Yeah, definitely. And in the other part, the SOAR, the security orchestration, automation, and response, I see it in both, where we can use it to monitor and identify, and then also help us recommend and guide our actions when we're doing recovery and response. So I think it can help in both of those areas for sure.
Interesting. So from a bad guy perspective, if you're the bad guy, how are you using it effectively? Where would you use it?
Yeah. Well, one area that we've already seen the effectiveness of is in phishing attacks. So we've kind of trained our users to look for bad grammar and things like that as a telltale sign that this might be a phishing email, and therefore, you shouldn't click on the link or do what it tells you to do. And my advice now is to stop teaching people that, because it's very easy for anyone with even just almost no knowledge of English. They could go to a chatbot and have it write a phishing email for them, and it will write it in perfect English. And therefore, if people are looking for bad grammar as an indicator, and then they don't see bad grammar, well, then we've now trained them on the wrong thing, and they're more likely to be susceptible to this. We did an experiment where we actually took some top-notch security researchers and had them write their best phishing emails. And then we had a chatbot write a phishing email. And then we tested it against people to see which one were they more likely to fall for. Well, the human written AI, the human written phishing email won by a very small margin. But really? I don't know if that's a cause for celebration or not. We can write a slightly better phishing email than a machine. But the point is, if the machine can get anywhere close, then that means a ton of people can leverage that. They don't have to have any expertise at all and be able to do this. So phishing is one where we already know that a better job can be done. And analyzing results of scans, for instance, if they do reconnaissance on your system, and then use that to suggest attack vectors from that. That type of expert advice, like you said, the apprentice that's helping in the security operations center. What if the apprentice was helping the bad guy figure out where he wants to attack next? These kind of things. Hacking passwords. Look, generative AI is really good at generating things, as its name implies. Well, in generating passwords is one of those things. It learned language from us, so it responds very much like we would. And if you ask it to generate passwords, it might generate passwords very much the same way a human would. And therefore, if you're doing a password attack, it's going to guess those passwords better than just an old-fashioned brute force would do. So we've seen that also as a possibility. And I have no doubt the bad guys are going to be creative and they're going to come up with plenty more.
Yeah. What about honeypots? Could you use AI on the good side to create new honeypots that are more clever? And as a bad guy, use AI to discover honeypots and not to go and get trapped in them?
Sure, I don't know why not. It's just a matter of time. I haven't personally worked on something like that, but it makes perfect sense that it would be. I think there are very few areas that don't have the potential to be touched by AI. If we think about what we do with computers in general involves intelligence in one form or another. So whether it's human intelligence or artificial intelligence is mostly just a matter of trustworthiness and accuracy and speed and ability, because we've already shown that AI has the ability to be creative and to think through and plan and reason and learn. And back when I was a computer science student, that was still a pipe dream. Way back in the day when I was riding the dinosaur to class, we thought maybe one day we could have a system that could imitate some of these things, and now we've got systems that do that on a regular basis. And so some of the things that we thought in the past only could be done by a human, we're finding that's not the case anymore. So it's just a matter of time before any of those kinds of use cases would be touched by AI.
So a lot of our listeners to this podcast and also the readers of the SafeHouse Initiative are small, mid-sized businesses or organizations that just don't have a lot of resources, money, and staff. What are some things that they could do to learn and enact upon harnessing AI and being better educated?
Yeah. In fact, interestingly, I've heard from it's interesting that you bring up that segment of the market, because a lot of times the reaction of those kind of organizations is, oh, that AI, that's some advanced technology. We don't have the resources to do that sort of stuff. We don't have the sophistication. We don't have the whatever. Well, guess what? Those are the organizations that you might argue will be most impacted by it and could leverage it the best in order to be a leveling of the playing field. Think about it again. Reflect back to when the internet was new. It was that some big organizations jumped on the internet and did well with it. But one of the things is it became a great leveler and a democratizing factor that allowed startup companies to compete with big established companies. Think back in the day when, we already had booksellers, Barnes and Noble and places like that. Well, Amazon comes on, and Amazon at one point was a tiny little operation, if you can imagine that. And they were able to grow really fast because the internet flattened so much of the barriers to entry. I think AI will do a lot of the same things. And you don't have to have systems that have the capacity to run all of this within your organization, run it on-prem. We have the cloud. So you basically rent space on an AI and use it on somebody else's system. And now all of a sudden, the same level of AI that might be available to what you might consider, organizations with deeper pockets and more sophistication. No, you can access something pretty close to it yourself. And that's so I think that's going to be an important thing. So now your question about education and awareness, I think that's key. I think there's a lot of things out there that are happening very rapidly. So this is going to be one that you have to keep learning all the time. What we knew before, some of that's true, some of it's not. I've heard it said that because especially generative AI is so new, that there almost are no experts. I feel like it's one of these cases where some people have read one chapter ahead in the book, and that's what qualifies them as an expert. And by the way, the chapter after that hasn't been written yet.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of learning this stuff together. But the good news is the internet is full of, well, good and bad information out there. And one I'll point folks to as a place to start is on the IBM Technology YouTube channel. I have a bunch of lightboard videos. Lightboards are things where it looks like I'm in a dark room writing backwards in the air.
Yes,
if you can,
those are impressive.
Yeah,
Jeff, those are
thank
impressive.
you.
Yep, yeah.
Thank you. So that would be one source. I would recommend to people, just because that's where I've tried to. I went out and learned something, and then I try to distill it down to, most of these are 10 minutes or less in length. So you can take a look at that, and hopefully that becomes helpful to people.
Yeah, they're very helpful. That's really how I discovered you to begin with. And I tell you what, I highly recommend viewing those to our listening audience. So Jeff, any other final? Yeah, no, it's just been a great conversation. I was wondering if you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom as we wrap this up.
Sure. This is a fascinating topic to me, so I can talk on forever, and hopefully I won't for your listeners. But I'll say we also have to look. We mentioned hallucination earlier. One of the other big areas that we need to inoculate people on and educate them on is deepfakes, where we're able to make a computer, an AI, generate the likeness, the physical likeness, in other words, something that looks like a video of a person that we know and sounds like them with their mannerisms and all of this. And there can be some really fascinating, even funny stuff that you can see on YouTube where these kind of deep fakes have been created of people But the issue is now we have what we think would be evidence of them doing and saying things that they didn't ever do or say. And that, in one case, there was a company that it cost them $35 million because they had a deep fake of the boss's voice calling and telling an employee to wire this money. And they believed they were talking to the boss, and they weren't. So, I would suggest the efforts that people might spend on deep fake detection, don't bother. That's my personal opinion, because the deep fakes will keep getting better and keep, it'll be that arms race where we have a detector and then the deep fake gets better. And now the detector doesn't work again. And that will continue to the point where I think, detection is going to be, lost cause. So what that means we have to do is think and treat that information differently than we did before. We need to put guardrails in place. Like in that company, I don't know what they had in place, but just hypothetically, they should have had a procedure that says no one person can wire $35 million.
Right.
There's multiple people to sign off. And on a voice only, that is not enough to authenticate, especially a transaction of that sort. So we put in multi-factor authentication. We put in separation of duties and approvals and build all of that into the system rather than spending your time trying to determine, is this a deep fake or not? And I think that's a better use of our time and resources that way. So the bottom line is we're going to get new attacks from AI. We're going to get new ways to deal with those attacks also coming from AI. So it giveth and taketh away. And it's really up to us as to which is going to be more of. And I'm generally optimistic on these things. So I'm going to believe the good guys are going to win, but it's going to be an interesting battle. And everybody better strap in and be ready for it.
I think strap it in is about the best word. It's a roller coaster we're going to take here, but we'll do it together. Because it's here, it's here. We just have to manage it. It's like the air we breathe now.
Absolutely. Keep your hands and feet inside the car as we turn upside down.
And don't stand up in the car.
Please no.
Well, Jeff, it is an absolute honor to have you on our show, and hopefully you'll come back and we'll have some further conversations on other subjects.
I'd be happy to. Thanks for inviting me, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. That's our podcast for today. I'm Jeff Edwards for the SafeHouse Initiative. Thanks for joining us, and remember, be safe, be resilient, and be kind to each other. For more information on the SafeHouse Initiative, please use your mobile device to scan the QR code on the screen. Send us an email at safehouseinitiative.org@gmail.com or visit us on our website, safehouseinitiative.org. We look forward to hearing from you.